Red. Little Red Riding Hood crouched behind a wild rose bush. Never before had she strayed so far from the path. Desperately, she hoped that this mistake would not be her last. Nestling in as closely as the thorns would allow, she heard the wolf. His quick and determined footsteps shortened to complete silence. She knew that he would now be sampling the air for her scent and prayed the flowers would cloak that trace. Before she could overthink her chances of escape, she stood and ran in the direction from which she had come. By the time her legs began to burn, she was already second-guessing herself. She should have already crossed the path from which she had wandered. Her panic now burdened her heart in a way that her tiring legs never could. Suddenly, she burst through a thicket and stumbled across the narrow dirt track. Stopping for a moment, she looked up both directions in an effort to determine the way to her grandmother's house. Upon hearing the wolf closing on her, the decision was made. She ran away. Her life quickly became that slow distortion of time that all bad dreams possess. Her nimble strides became lethargic paces. The cool night air pierced her lungs in shards that seemed to provide only half the breath she needed. Even under the light of the full moon, her eyes deserted her as she could barely see the trail directly ahead. Just as she was about to drop and accept her dark fate, a candlelit window brought her world back to its normal speed. Her spirit renewed, she darted between the rows of her grandmother's garden and stamped her way onto the porch. "Red!" her grandmother started. "I was so worried. Why were you gone for so long?" Grandmother's question was quickly answered when the loud clack of a wolf trap rolled in from the edge of the forest. A terrifying howl rushed at them. "I see," Grandmother replied while patting the young girl's back. "Let us go see what Grandmother's trap has caught us." "No, no, please," Red Riding Hood begged, but her grandmother held a single finger up to her lips, and the girl hushed. Hand in hand, the pair slowly wound down the path and came upon the rusty wolf trap. Unexpectedly, there was no wolf, only a severed paw. From the gnawed end, it was obvious that the animal chose to choose off its own foot rather than face its hunters. Patting Red's hand before releasing it, the old woman collected the amputated limb and rolled it up in her apron. A moment later, the trap was reset, and they were returning to the small wooded cottage. Inside, the hearth fended off the early morning chill. Above the bricked fireplace loomed the head of a great timber wolf, its silhouette casting mysteriously shadows upon the cottage's sloped ceiling. All around the room, wolf pelts served as rugs and blankets and window coverings. In one corner, a large drying rack displayed grandmother's latest catch. It was the fur from a huge black wolf. On a nearby shelf, jars containing the creature's eyes and teeth reflected the firelight. The skinned animal's remains, slick and wet, were still growing and twitching beneath the rack. "Now help your old grandmother carry this beast to the edge of the woods." Dutifully, Red Riding Hood helped move the slowly dying carcass. After saying a short eulogy for the soul, they again clasped hands and returned to the cottage. Sitting at the small table, the pair warmed themselves with cups of dandelion tea. As the sun rose, they listened to the final howls coming from just beyond their garden. The suffering wolf-speak gave way to the skinless insanity of what might have been English. Red finally felt safe as the rising sun turned the hides around them into tanned human flesh. Even the paw that they'd just captured returned to its original form. The long, slender fingers contracted as a shaft of morning light moved across them. The young girl watched as the prize head above the fire became a kind-looking young man of some appeal, his glass eyes shining with the rays of the morning sun.